In 2015, I came to Mount Union to be a mechanical engineer. I also wanted to join the Purple Raider Marching Band because it's something that I did all throughout high school and I loved. While I was in the marching band, I learned about an organization called Kappa Kappa Psi, and its main mission statement is to serve the bands in every way that it can. And that's something that I loved doing in high school, was figuring out what could I do to help out the band directors. And so I decided that I wanted to join this organization. I was lucky enough to get a bid my freshman year, and so I joined. But then my freshman year came to a close, and I realized that I was in the wrong major. Engineering wasn't working out. And so I switched over into accounting. And so sophomore year, fall semester, I start my accounting major. At the end of fall semester, elections roll around for the chapter, and all of a sudden I've been elected treasurer of Iota Lambda of Kappa Kappa Psi. I'm Kyle Niemeyer, and this is just a reflection as to what I've learned personally, professionally, and just about myself in being treasurer of Kappa Kappa Psi and how it related to my major. When I was elected, one of the first things that I noticed is there was very little records being kept when it comes to transactions. Something that I learned in finance, in financial accounting that fall, is that if you don't know where your money's going, it doesn't matter if it's you personally, an organization, a company. If you don't know where your money's going, your organization is bound to fail. And so the first thing that I did was start a physical journal and an online journal. The physical journal was so that the chapter always had a hard paper copy of everything that happened that semester. The online journal allowed for easy access from everyone in the chapter to see what all's happened, and it allows me easy editing. And so instead of having to either remember something we purchased or have to carry a book around me at all times to write down purchases, I can just pull out my phone, edit the sheet, and then when I get home, I can pull out the book, pull up the sheet, and compare and write in what needs to be written in. And so the first iteration of the online journal simply asked for an item, a debit, and a credit. Now, a debit is when money goes into the chapter, and a credit is when money comes out of the chapter. For example, if the chapter spends $50 on pizza, it is a $50 credit. Or if the chapter made $98 at the fall formal, it is a $98 debit. And that puts to use everything that I learned fall semester. But now it's the spring and I'm learning new information. And something that I quickly learned is understanding when you purchase items is also important. And so the second iteration of this journal just included the dates. And this is important because it allows you to see what months you spend more and what months you make more. For example, in the fall semester, Iota Lambda, which is our chapter of Kappa Kappa Psi as a whole, in the fall, we make a lot of money. Probably roughly $1,000 a semester. But in the spring, we're spending a lot of money, roughly about $1,000 a semester. That's because in the fall, we don't have that many expenses. There's just band camp, which might cost about $100 for like a gift for everyone coming back. But there's 4 different fundraisers going on. And so it's easy to make a lot of money when you have a bunch of fundraisers happening. But then in the spring semester, we only have 2 fundraisers, and so we're not making that much money. And then that's also when district convention happens. And this year, actually, we spent about $900 just in a hotel and gas alone going to districts. And so understanding when we make more money and when we're spending money allows us to make decisions. Like maybe we don't need a 5th fundraiser event in the fall, but we could use a 3rd fundraiser event in the spring. And also cutting down expenses in the fall because we know that district convention, when it comes around, is something that everyone wants to go to, and it's a very expensive thing. Now, the third iteration is something that was primarily for me. It's exactly the same. It has the date, the item, credit, debit. The main difference is it tells you how much cash you should have in the account. It does this by totaling all the debits, totaling all the credits, and then subtracting the debits from the credits. This is important because then I can check the online journal, compare it to my physical journal that I'm doing the same thing on, do those match up. Then I can look online into the bank account and see, well, do we really have $48? If not, is there checks that didn't clear? Did I forget to deposit something? Or was something reported wrong? This is a part of internal controls that I learned in managerial accounting. Internal controls is steps that you're taking to reduce the risk of fraud and material misstatements. And so by having all of these checks that I'm making, it helps reduce that risk of something going wrong and something being missed. Now, the fourth and final iteration that I made my senior year is also the most advanced. And this is for budgeting. You see, every spring semester, it's always the most stressful semester as a treasurer. Because there's finals, and then in the middle of finals, Student Senate wants to know how much money did you make this year, how much money did you spend this year. And also, Nationals wants to know how much money did you make and how much money did you spend. And it's really hard looking through these journals of probably at least 100 entries a year, and you have to add up everything and what kind of expense is this? Is it membership expense, other? Did we spend it on a service event? I don't remember. This takes all of those problems out. It uses something that I learned my senior year here. This allows practical application of new information. It uses something called data validation. What data validation does is it looks for very specific inputs. And so, for example, Student Senate all the way on the left here only wants to know two things. Is it an expense or is it an income? And so I can set up data validation to say, only accept expense with a capital E and only accept income with a capital I. Reject anything else. This is important because formulas, they need very specific inputs. And expense with the capital E is different than expense with the lowercase e. And now your functions break and your data is useless. And so by limiting it to only accept capital E expenses, it allows me to then make this first pivot table up here. And what this does is it's only 4 transactions, 2 of them being expenses, but it takes all of the expenses in this year and gives you a subtotal. And so we can see we spent $150. And then we can also look and see, well, $100 was for band camp and $50 was on pizza. And this makes reporting our incomes and outcomes easier to Student Senate, and it reduces that stress load on the treasurer, making their life easier. And so being treasurer, it's taught me how to use my technical skills and the knowledge that I'm learning, but it's also teaching me what works and what doesn't work. Because this was 4 iterations. There's at least easily 20 different iterations that I could have shown, but they all failed. And so for every working spreadsheet that I've made for the chapter, there's easily 2 or 3 that have failed in its place. But it's knowing those failures and learning from those failures that allows me to become better as a treasurer and overall as an accountant, because I've met those failures, I've met those roadblocks, and I know how to get past them, which is something that some of my peers might not have. Now, being treasurer, it's not just taught me technical skills. It's taught me soft skills, like how to communicate what these reports mean. Not everyone has a background in accounting and finance. And so, for example, one of our big fundraisers is Tuba Christmas. When I'm telling the chapter how Tuba Christmas went, I can't say that, well, it's a $700 debit and a $600 credit, and so we profited $100. What does that mean? I'm the only one who understands that. And so instead I have to say that we were paid $700 for the different merchandise and stuff. However, we owe Tuba Christmas itself $600. And so overall the chapter has profited $100 this year on Tuba Christmas. It doesn't matter how good the information you gather is unless you can report on it. And that's something that I got practical experience in, because as I gave reports to the chapters, if there's ever anything that someone doesn't understand, they will question me about it. And so I came to understand how to explain what these reports mean in a way that everybody in the chapter can understand clearly. It's also taught me that I'm not the only one who's going to use these spreadsheets. A nice thing about Kappa Kappa Psi is there's no limit to what position you can run for. You don't have to be an accountant to be treasurer. You don't have to be a parliamentarian, or you don't have to be a law student to be parliamentarian. Anyone who wants to run for a position can go for it. It's up to the brothers of the chapter to decide who they deem the most fit for the position. And so, last fall, at the end of the semester, it was my last term as treasurer. And we had to elect a new treasurer because I'm graduating. Our new treasurer, she is an integrated media student, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. We get outside judgment and a viewpoint to help make these things a little more understandable for people who don't have that accounting background that I have. But that provides a challenge for me, is our new treasurer has never built a spreadsheet in her life. And so I have to take everything that I've written and I need to translate it in a way that she can understand and recreate. Because it doesn't matter how much work I put in, if they take a step back and throw what I made out simply because they can't understand it, then I have failed my job as treasurer and as an accountant. And so I spent all last semester trying to translate everything in a way that she would hopefully be able to understand. And then I've spent this semester answering her questions on anything that I failed to translate or anything that I didn't think needed translated but needed translated. And it's been a learning experience because, like I said, not everybody knows the accounting world. And I'm not the only one who's using these spreadsheets. Everyone needs to be able to understand what they mean, or else that data is useless. And probably the most important thing that being treasurer has taught me is every project has to come to an end. As much as I'd love to keep editing as I learn more and add more features, I am no longer treasurer of Iota Lambda. I've spent 2 years putting blood, sweat, and tears into these statements that I've created. Like I said, for every one that worked, there was 2 or 3 that failed. And it's hard to let these go because I'll never see these statements again. They are no longer mine. The day that our new treasurer was elected, I changed ownership of those spreadsheets from me to her, and I left myself editing access. But I told her, as soon as you feel like you're ready, take me off. That's because there's sensitive financial data in there. It shows people who can't pay their dues on time. And that is information that is only fit for the treasurer to see, and I'm no longer the treasurer. And I have to be willing to let go of all of this work that I put in and hope that the next treasurer is able to use it and understand it. And I have to trust that my work is not in vain. And it's a hard thing to come to terms with when you spend, like I said, 2 years working on it. It almost feels kind of like sending your child off to school for the first time. It's a hard thing to do. You don't want to see them go. Like I said, every project eventually needs to meet its end. And that's what being treasurer has taught me. It's taught me about my technical skills and how to be better at making spreadsheets and collecting data and analyzing that data. It's taught me how to translate that data then into other people who don't have the same training, as I do. And most importantly, it's taught me that everything has an end, and eventually you just have to let go. Thank you.